but I think there's a good chance they completely crash and burn this season. Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Yelling and Propelling, episode number 14 here on the show. Shout out to the Charlotte Hornets, the Chicago Bulls, and the Memphis Grizzlies, three teams who I made some really bold predictions for this season. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, today I will be proclaiming how I believe each and every NBA team will fare in this upcoming season. We're going the whole 9 yards today, giving a prediction about all 30 NBA teams and ranking them 1 through 15 in their respective conference. Fans of which NBA teams will be the most disappointed, fans of which teams will be pleasantly surprised, and which team is most likely to turn my prediction into a freezing cold take. Well, the jury will be out, but first and foremost, let's jump into our weekly recap segment. What everybody around the NBA has been talking about recently is the Draymond Green and Jordan Poole situation, where at a Warriors practice a couple weeks back, Draymond essentially sucker punched Jordan Poole right in the kisser. They were trying to figure out why he did it. The jokes came flying out that Jordan Poole told Draymond he was going to average another triple single this year. TMZ got a hold of the video about a week and a half ago, and it's been spreading like wildfire ever since. So everybody expected Draymond to be suspended for the beginning of the year, maybe just like a couple of games, but it was announced 2 days ago that Green will be fined an undisclosed amount and will not be suspended, not even for a game. I'm definitely not outraged by this in any way, but I wanted to compare it to the Bobby Portis and Nikola Mirotic. That's a blast from the past, if you remember that name. That situation that went down with the Chicago Bulls a couple years ago, maybe it was like 6 years ago at this point. Bobby Portis punched Mirotic in the face, and he got suspended for a decent chunk of time. Now, that may have been because Mirotic got injured. I think it broke his cheekbone or something. So maybe the suspension depends on if the player they punch is going to be out for a certain amount of time. I'm not really sure, but I just wanted to make a quick comparison there. The Phoenix Suns' search for a potential suitor for forward Jay Crowder goes on. As it was announced, he will not be playing for the club this year. Both sides were in agreement on this. The most recent team to emerge was the Atlanta Hawks, and they are looking to add to their depth at the wing position after, of course, losing Danilo Gallinari in the offseason. Now for some preseason stuff. LaMelo Ball suffered a grade 2 ankle sprain just a few days ago. The Hornets and their fans, of course, were certainly relieved as LaMelo went down in a lot of pain. However, he will miss the beginning of the season and possibly the first couple of weeks. The New York Knicks wrapped up their final preseason game last night, Friday the 14th, so allow me to give a brief summary of how all 4 preseason games went for the Knicks. On Tuesday, October 4th, we got our first look at Jalen Brunson in a Knicks uniform with that starting unit in the Garden. He did not disappoint. 5 assists, 16 points on a very efficient 7-for-9 shooting in just 20 minutes of action. RJ also had himself a lovely game, tallied on 21 points, and we defeated the Pistons with ease, 117-96. Game number 2 was that following Friday, in which we won in blowout fashion, once again defeating the Indiana Pacers 131-114. The biggest story here was that Obi Toppin turned this game into a warm-up for the dunk contest. 24 points for number 1, a couple of windmills, cockbacks, and even East Bay in transition. Our third preseason game was this past Wednesday in a rematch against the Pacers. They got the revenge against us, 109-100. Kind of came back down to earth here. The starters played fine, but our bench was in a certain funk that they could not shake the whole night. And lastly, Friday, October 14th, we faced the Wizards back in the Garden and got back on the winning side of things, making our preseason record 3-1. By the way, the MVP of this 4th and final preseason game goes to Mitchell Robinson without a doubt. 20 points, 12 rebounds. I think 9 of those rebounds were offensive. 2 blocks as well, 9 for 12 shooting for our big man. It is now time to give a full prediction of how the 2022-2023 NBA season will pan out. Why don't we go out west first and begin by predicting what the regular season Western Conference standings will look like in May 2023, of course, when the playoffs will be getting going. Working our way from the bottom to the top, let's start off with the pond scum, the single-celled amoebas in the West. Yes, that was a Shark Tale reference. Coming in dead last, the 15th seed in the West, I've got the Utah Jazz, and boy, how the mighty have fallen. Unless Colin Sexton is able to play at an all-star level, this team is going nowhere fast. You also figure that they'll unload a few more of their veterans and expiring contracts via trades throughout the year. So, yeah, they might just end up with the worst record in the entire league this year. If this Utah Jazz team were to somehow, some way make the playoffs, or even the play-in tournament for that matter, I'll probably light myself on fire. The 14th seed in the West will be the San Antonio Spurs. Greg Popovich is absolutely salivating looking at 7'4" freak of nature Victor Wembanyama. I think I said that right. Still working on that pronunciation. Victor will most likely be the player selected first overall in next year's draft, so since the Spurs won't be making any noise this year, they'll be in the running for him. Up next, we've got the Oklahoma City Thunder at the 13th seed. Maybe would have been a few spots higher for me if rookie center Chet Holmgren did not suffer a season-ending foot injury, but alas, they remain at the bottom of the West. 12th seed, give me the Houston Rockets. I think they have a very small chance of making the play-in tournament this year, which isn't necessarily a bad thing considering last year they won just 20 games, and that was, of course, the worst in the entire league. They've got some exciting young talent, and maybe they'll be able to put it all together pretty soon, but it won't be this year. Rounding out our bottom 5 in the Western Conference, we've got the Sacramento Kings, consistently forgotten about. Their current roster does have some talent, and maybe first-year head coach Mike Brown will be a much-needed breath of fresh air, but a playoff run this year, not a chance. At the 10th seed, I've got the Portland Trail Blazers. I really like the Jeremy Grant signing, and I'm also very high on Anfernee Simons, who has kind of stepped into that void left by CJ McCollum and now starts in the backcourt alongside Damian Lillard. But I feel like in this Western Conference right now, it's not enough to place them any higher than the bottom of the play-in tournament. 9th seed, LA Lakers, and whoa, I know it's low, but I really can't see this Lakers team winning enough games to avoid the play-in tournament this year. I mean, they've been a mess the past 2 years, and you bring in new head coach Darvin Ham, he's not going to fix it overnight, and he's not supposed to fix it overnight, so it's going to take some time there for them to get back atop of the Western Conference. LeBron James is probably going to pass up Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in points this year and move up to first all time, which is pretty cool, but at least Lakers fans have that to look forward to. At the 8th seed, I believe the New Orleans Pelicans will reside, just as they did last year. Zion Williamson's return will obviously be instrumental to their success this year. Brandon Ingram and him haven't played off of each other extraordinarily well in the past, but overall I don't think they'll be vastly better or worse than they were last year. Transitioning to the 7th seed, I've got the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're going to have some growing pains this season with new addition center Rudy Gobert, but let me tell you, I think Gobert, Anthony Edwards, and Karl Anthony Towns are going to be one of the very best big threes in the league for years to come. At the 6th seed, I want the Memphis Grizzlies. Certainly a hot take here. I think the Grizzlies will come back down to earth. Not to say that last year was necessarily a fluke, but I just need to see more out of their role players. Guys outside of Ja Morant need to show something more. And also power forward Jaren Jackson will be out for the first 3 months of the season, so that will for sure have an impact on their record. Stepping into the top 5 now, the 5th seed will be the defending champion Golden State Warriors. Who knows how this Jordan Poole, Draymond Green situation will play out in the end. I do know that they are going to miss the presence of Gary Payton II, along with other members of their bench that departed in the offseason, but overall they'll be fine. I mean, there's no real trouble in paradise there. The 4th seed in the Western Conference this year will be the LA Clippers. Yes, I think the Clippers are going to be legit contenders this year. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George finally back on the court together. The only real weakness of this Clippers team, to me, is their lack of big man depth. Zubac is about all they got, They got to give Zubac some help there in the paint. And I'm buying in on the fact that John Wall will be able to revitalize his career starting at point guard for the Clippers this season. The number 3 seed this year will be the Dallas Mavericks. Luka Doncic will be in the MVP conversation. New addition Christian Wood is going to be doing his thing as their starting center. And this team has shooters on shooters on shooters. Frankly, this team reminds me of the 2018 Rockets. And Luka is, of course, James Harden in that comparison. So let's hope they don't fall too deeply in love with small ball like the 2018 Rockets did. And that led to their demise. Second seed in the West this year will be the Phoenix Suns. There's no question this Suns team will be able to dominate in the regular season, but will they be able to put together a strong playoff run and get back to the NBA Finals? The DeAndre Ayton situation was a very bad look for them, and of course, Chris Paul is not getting any younger here. And top of the hill in the West, the number 1 seed this year will be the Denver Nuggets, in my very humble opinion, of course. Getting Jamal Murray back is so big for the Nuggets this year. Their guard play last year was clearly lacking, and also what is huge for them moving forward is Michael Porter Jr. He is a ginormous X factor for the team this year. They're going to need him to step up as their primary wing scorer. That does it for my Western Conference predictions this year. Which rankings did you like? Which rankings did you hate? Which rankings made you absolutely furious? Do me a favor and let me know. Let's take a big leap and a big bound over to the East Coast and start firing off those ratings. Try to keep up. 15 down, 15 to go now. Take a look at the East. In the 15th spot, dead last here, we've got the Orlando Magic. For the second consecutive year, this is not a play-in tournament team. I mean, I've heard some people talking about it, the Magic, maybe they can make the play-in tournament this year. No. I'm very high on rookie Paolo Banchero, of course, the first selection in last year's draft, but I'm very low on the rest of the current roster. I don't really think Cole Anthony is their point guard for the future. Might be a hot take, whatever. Is Jonathan Isaac ever going to play basketball again? I don't know. 14th seed, give me the Indiana Pacers, the other NBA team that is just consistently forgotten about. They need to do anything in their power to build around Tyrese Halliburton because that dude is special. Same with rookie Benedict Mathurin. I was really hoping the Knicks were able to snatch him in last year's draft, but unfortunately they took him, the Pacers that is, took him very early at the 6th pick, and rightfully so. I think he's going to end up being a very good player in this league. But do guys like Miles Turner and Buddy Hield fit into the long-term picture for this team? I really don't think so. At number 13, we will see the Charlotte Hornets fall, and yes, you heard me right, folks. The Charlotte Hornets will not even be in a play-in tournament this year. This is quite possibly my boldest take, but I think there's a good chance they completely crash and burn this season. Small forward Miles Bridges may never play another game for the Hornets with these accusations he's getting hit now. His trial keeps getting pushed back. Don't quote me on this, I think it's gotten pushed back like 6 or 7 times now. And as we all know, he was absolutely pivotal to their success last year. I think a lot of their players have already peaked. Not LaMelo. I don't think he's already peaked. I think he's got a ways to go. But I think some of their other players have already peaked and now are on the decline. So yes, the Hornets will not be a winning team this year. The team that represents our nation's capital holds the 12th seed on my prediction sheet, and that, of course, is the Washington Wizards. Someone save Bradley Beal, man. I mean, their starting lineup this year is going to look something like Monty Morris, Brad Beal, Kyle Kuzma, Denny Avdia, and Kristaps Porzingis. Yeah, that's not very good. At the 11th seed, I foresee the Detroit Pistons. I talked about it the other day on the show. The Pistons have a pretty bright future. I'm not insanely high on Cade Cunningham, but his backcourt mate, rookie Jaden Ivey, is going to be a star in this league, I'll tell you that. I think this team significantly improves from last season, but still falls just short of a shot at the playoffs this year. For the 10th seed in the East, I've got another potential shocker for you guys, and that is the Chicago Bulls. I think they're just a mess that has yet to be exposed, but this season, exposed they will be. They don't have a whole lot of young talent nor draft capital to enter a rebuilding phase, so they will definitely remain in win-now mode for as long as possible. But I don't believe they'll be winning a whole lot with their current big three, that being DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic, as much as I like DeMar DeRozan. I mean, if they couldn't do crap with how well he played last year and the amount of game-winning shots he hit, it's going to be rough this time around. The 9th seed in the Eastern Conference, guess who I've got there? The New York Knickerbockers. Did you guess it? You probably did because of my upped energy, and also because I think this is a very reasonable prediction for the Knicks this season. There's a lot of talent on this roster. There's a lot of real NBA talent here, and there's also potential that we find a happy medium between the 2020 NBA season, where we shocked the world and landed the 4th seed, and last year where we fell short of all expectations and were only the 11th seed in the East. Guys like Jalen Brunson and RJ Barrett have real chances to make their first All-Star appearances. Julius Randle could really thrive as a third scoring option, especially without the added pressure of needing to be the team's main playmaker. There's a nice group of veterans on this roster that can come in at any point and do their thing, and a couple of really young, exciting players that could certainly put on a show. Quentin Grimes, for example, one of these young, exciting players, will be receiving important minutes this year, and I predict that he's not going to necessarily take a huge leap in his second season, but prove that he can consistently do what we saw from him at his best last year, which is being an absolute menace defensively and a very real shooting threat on the other side of the ball. Two more of those young, exciting players, Emmanuel Quickley and Obi Toppin, both going into their third years. They're starting to mature and get the feel of NBA basketball. Quickley has really become a solid playmaker and has potential to grow even more in that department. And now he's playing alongside Derrick Rose. And in the short spurts we saw of that in our amazing 2020 season, it was nothing but pure beauty when those two were running our backcourt. So, yeah, we're going to get more of that. And now Obi Toppin is a real lob threat and a real scary sight in transition. Now he's got opposing teams writing his name down as a guy you don't want to let get out into the open floor. So for the Knicks this year, the part of me that is such an enormous fan wants to place them even higher and predict that they'll return to their former glory from 2020, one of the best defensive teams in the league, all of that jazz. I meant to preface earlier, by the way, that I do this every year where I predict where I think every NBA team is going to land in the standings. And last year, when I did it, I let that enormous Knicks fan side of me make the prediction. I locked in the Knicks. I locked in that the Knicks would land the 4th seed, as they did the year prior, and boy was I wrong. Obviously, now granted, I wasn't alone thinking that the Knicks would be similarly dominant in 2021 as they were the year prior, but I made that decision with a lot of bias. This time around, I seriously put aside my bias, and I mean it when I say that. When looking at the landscape that is the Eastern Conference and which teams are going to be championship contenders, championship pretenders, and which teams are just going to flat out suck, I think the Knicks will end up, somewhere in the middle there, and I think they're going to operate in that gray area. I think that they're going to end up as a play-in tournament team, and for me, I'm picking them to land the 9th seed this year. Let's get back to it here. The 8th seed, I believe, will be the Toronto Raptors, a very fundamentally sound team and a very well-coached team. Shout out to head coach Nick Nurse. But the problem here is that the East just happened to get more competitive in the offseason, and they fall behind just a tiny bit. They didn't really improve on their roster a whole lot. Some of the younger guys could take a step, but yeah, I'd place them at the 8th seed. In the 7th seed, we will see the Boston Celtics, of course much lower than anyone would have anticipated after their playoff run last season, but with head coach Ime Udoka suspended for the entire season, probably never coaching for them again, star center Robert Williams expected to miss the first couple months of the season, which, remember, always turns out to be more than just 2 months. It ends up being the majority of the year. We probably won't see him back until maybe February. New addition Danilo Gallinari is going to be out the entire year as well with a torn ACL, which he tore in the summer playing for the Italian national team. So I'm predicting that last year's runner-ups will have a disappointing season. The 6th seed in the East might be yet another shock to you guys. I've got the Miami Heat here. I think they missed their window. I'm going to say it. I think they missed their championship window. They couldn't get it done in 2020 in the bubble against LeBron and the Lakers. Last year, they were one of the best teams in the league during the regular season, made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and took the Celtics to Game 7, which is, surely impressive, but I don't think it gets any sunnier in Miami this year. They made no real improvements to their roster in the offseason, and they lost PJ Tucker in free agency. He isn't irreplaceable, don't get me wrong, but they will definitely miss his presence this year. Here we are at the final 5, and for the 5th seed, I think we'll see the Atlanta Hawks could potentially be the best backcourt in the league this year with Trae Young at point and new acquisition DeJounte Murray at the shooting guard. They've got good bench pieces. Clint Capella's still holding down the paint there. I think the Hawks are going to be a really good team this year. Number 4, I've got the dreaded Brooklyn Nets taking the 4th seed. I think Ben Simmons will actually really help this team. The key for them, as everybody knows, is their health, and KD and Kyrie need to stay healthy for the majority of the year. I don't think there's any more vaccine mandates that Kyrie's going to have to protest, so that's good. And if they don't stay healthy, Ben Simmons is going to magically develop an injury just in time for him to not have to play without them. But yes, jokes aside, I think the Nets will land the 4th seed in the East this year, assuming they remain at least somewhat healthy. The third seed in the Eastern Conference this year, give me the Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean, what a roster they've constructed. Some people may say that this year is too soon for them to become a force in the East, but I disagree. I think this team now, of course, with Donovan Mitchell now leading their offensive workload, will be very scary. Everybody's looking at that backcourt of Mitchell and Darius Garland. But what really is frightening to me about that team is that defensive front court of Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. I mean, come on, like that shot blocking duo is insane. Number 2, give me the Milwaukee Bucks. Can't count out Giannis, man. I mean, he's going to go for another MVP this year. If I had to pick with a water gun to my head right now, I would probably say Giannis will win the MVP this year. I'm sure they'll have some injury trouble, but overall, they'll be fine. Plus, they've been rumored to be in trade talks for guys like Jordan Clarkson. That's exactly what they need, some bench scoring. And last, but actually the opposite of least, we have the Philadelphia 76ers. This just might be their year, quite possibly the year that they put it all together and bring a championship home to Philly, but let me not get ahead of myself. They will be a very strong regular season team and finish with the best record in the Eastern Conference. Hey, there you have it, folks. 30 rankings for the 30 NBA teams in less than 30 minutes. Less than 25 minutes, actually. But thank you a ton for listening. And guess what? The NBA season is here. Grab your popcorn, sit back, and prepare for what is going to be an awesome season. This year's rookie class is outstanding. There's a ton of new places in new faces. Switch those two words around, thank you. And it all starts Tuesday, October 18th, with the 76ers going into Boston to take on the Celtics at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And later on that night, we've got the defending champs, the Golden State Warriors, hosting the Los Angeles Lakers at 10 p.m. My favorite sports team dressed in orange and yours kicks their season off the following night, Wednesday, October 19th at 7:30 p.m. against the Memphis Grizzlies in Memphis. You can find me sprinting out of my final college class of the day Wednesday evening, hurling myself onto my basement couch, and getting my TV booted up at light speed again at 7:30 p.m. Once again, thank you so much for tuning back in to Yelling and Propelling. Farewell for now. Have a superb rest of your day or night, and I hope to see you again soon.
Go Knicks.